Hi! So, I know sometimes breaking down Shakespeare can really suck. So let's see if we can break one down together, if that'll help a little bit, kind of ease the pain there. So I'm going to perform Edmund's monologue from Act 1, Scene 2 of King Lear, and then we're going to break it down together afterwards, see if we can go through some lines that maybe are a little bit confusing, and then I'm going to perform it again, see if we picked up anything new that will help us with some understanding of the monologue. Thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law, my services are bound. Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me, for that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother? Why, bastard? Wherefore base? When my dimensions are as well compact, and my mind as generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue, why brand they us with base, with baseness? Bastardy, base, who, in the lusty stealth of nature, take more composition and fierce quality than doth with a dull, stale, tired bed, go to the creating a whole tribe of fops got tween sleep and wake. Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund, as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now gods, stand up for bastards. So now that we've gone through the monologue once, let's try and break it down, see if that helps us understand any part of the monologue a little bit better. So right now in the play, this is Act 1, Scene 2, and we're hearing from Edmund that he's not really happy with his brother Edgar or his father Gloucester. Hi everyone, just a quick heads up. Edgar, Edmund's dad, is actually pronounced Gloucester. It's not Gloucester. Just goes to show that even if you read a play a million times like me, I love King Lear, I totally got that wrong. And I learn something new every day thanks to ISC, so go ISC. And Gloucester is the father of both Edmund and Edgar, but they don't have the same mother. So Edgar is Gloucester's legitimate child, meaning he was a child of the marriage, and Edmund was actually a child that Gloucester had during an affair, during something that wasn't supposed to be happening. So that's why Edmund is referred to as illegitimate, as base, as bastard. Those are all terms to refer to the fact that Edmund is not a child of marriage here. So now we see a couple times, not even just a couple times, a lot of times, Edmund talks about that legitimacy and how that bothers him. In fact, he starts the whole monologue complaining to nature about why, if he is the exact same as Edmund in body, in mind, in all sorts of different qualities, why, because he was born in a certain way, in a certain manner, that he is treated so badly. And we have to recognize that back in the day that this play would be taking place, an illegitimate child would not really have any title, and that's a big thing here in the context of this play. This is a kingdom, and having a title basically means that your name is important, that you're an important person. And not only is Edmund a bastard child, but he's also the younger brother. So it means that he's not going to get any of the inheritance. That's all going to go to Edgar. So Edmund is obviously really upset about that and is kind of really longing for that. He talks a lot about legitimate, the fine word legitimate. He really thinks that that's a unfair way to treat people. Base, bastardy, base. He repeats that line a lot. It's clear that he's almost going crazy about this. The repetition there. With base, with baseness, bastardy, base. He's just repeating himself over and over again. Those all are basically him kind of honing in on the fact that he's not treated the way he wants to be treated. If we go to the middle of the monologue, we have this line, who in the lusty stealth of nature take more composition and fierce quality than doth. That part could be a little bit confusing when you first read it. It actually is Edmund saying that because he's an illegitimate child, or a child of like non-marriage, there was more passion in his creation. And that makes him honestly a better person. Not personality-wise necessarily, but just as a creation, he's better. He's not from what he calls a dull, stale, tired bed, or between sleep and wake. And he actually talks about other children who are made like that as a whole tribe of fops, and fops is essentially just fools. In this context, we can kind of assume it's fools who are obsessed with riches. So something we can actually hone in on here, be a little more detail-oriented, is the line, "Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund as to the legitimate." Fine word, legitimate. So that line actually breaks Shakespeare's iambic pentameter. And whenever Shakespeare does that, it's definitely on purpose. And we can hone in on that and see that he's focusing on this legitimate part. Now, a lot of people will go through this monologue and they'll argue that either Edmund is motivated entirely by greed and the legitimate is an excuse for it, or he is entirely motivated by that lack of legitimacy and the greed just kind of comes along with it. And it's a little bit of both, but we can see here that because of that iambic pentameter breaking up, Shakespeare really wants us to focus on that line. He wants us to hear that line. He wants us to hear Edmund kind of complaining about the word legitimate, how he thinks it's an unfair comparison between him and Edgar. So now that we've gone through that monologue together and kind of broken apart bits and pieces of it, let's see if another performance will help us find anything new. Thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound. Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom, and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me, for that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother? Why bastard? Wherefore base? When my dimensions are as well compact, my mind as generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue. Why brand they us with base, with baseness, bastardy, base, base? Who, in the lusty stealth of nature, take more composition and fierce quality than doth with a dull, tired, stale bed go to the creating whole tribe of fops got between sleep and wake. Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now gods, stand up for bastards.